A toy gets snatched, a sibling gets pushed, someone ends up in tears on the living room floor, and the parent, doing exactly what they're supposed to do, turns to the child responsible and says, "Say you're sorry." And the child stands there, jaw set, arms crossed, eyes fixed somewhere on the carpet, and says absolutely nothing. The silence stretches. The parent repeats it a little firmer, "Say sorry, right now." And the child somehow becomes even more immovable than before. Eventually, after enough pressure, the word comes out, flat, fast, practically weaponized with how little feeling is behind it. Sorry. Said the way someone might say a password to get through a locked door, not because anything is actually felt, but because it's the fastest route out of an uncomfortable standoff. Every parent has lived this moment, and most walk away from it sensing, correctly, that nothing real just happened. This video is going to give parents the exact words to say instead of demanding, "Say you're sorry," words that actually build the capacity for genuine remorse, rather than training a child to perform an empty ritual just to make the adult in the room stop pushing. Before getting to the words, it is worth understanding why forced apologies fail so consistently, because the mechanism is almost the opposite of what most parents assume. The goal of demanding "say you're sorry" is to instill accountability and empathy. But what actually happens, developmentally, is something quite different. A child who is forced to say words they do not feel learns very efficiently that an apology is a magic phrase that ends conflict, not a genuine expression of understanding someone else's pain. The skill being taught is performance, not remorse. There is also a deeper issue. True remorse requires something called perspective taking, the ability to imagine how an experience felt from another person's point of view. This skill develops gradually throughout childhood and is nowhere near fully formed in a 5, 7, or even 10-year-old, especially in the heated 30 seconds immediately after a conflict. When a parent demands an apology in that window, they're asking a child to produce an emotional state, genuine remorse, that the child's brain has not yet had time or sometimes the developmental capacity to actually generate. So the child either refuses, because the words would be a lie, and some children have enough integrity to resist saying something they do not mean, or they comply hollowly, which teaches the opposite lesson the parent intended. Here's what most parents say in this moment, and why each version backfires. Say you're sorry right now. This treats an apology as a command to be obeyed, rather than a feeling to be developed, and many children, particularly those with a strong independence streak, will resist a command on principle, regardless of how they actually feel about what happened. You need to apologize or no screen time. This turns the apology into a transaction, explicitly teaching the child that the words are a currency to be exchanged for restored privileges, which is the furthest possible thing from genuine remorse. And "tell your sister you're sorry now," repeated with rising volume, simply escalates a power struggle that has nothing left to do with the original incident. It becomes a contest of wills between parent and child, and the sibling who was actually hurt is now a forgotten bystander in an argument about compliance. So here's what to say instead. In the moment right after a conflict, resist the instinct to extract an apology immediately. Instead, go first to the child who was hurt, kneel down, and address the situation itself. "I saw what happened. That really hurt, didn't it?" Attend to the hurt child's feelings fully before turning to the one responsible. Then, turn to the child who caused the harm, calmly, without demanding anything yet, and say, "Come here for a second. I want you to see something." Bring them gently into proximity with the consequence of what happened, not as punishment, but as information. If a sibling is crying, say, "Look at her face. What do you think she's feeling right now?" If a toy was broken, say, "Look at what happened to it. How do you think that feels after working hard on something?" This is the critical pivot. Instead of demanding the child produce remorse on command, the parent is helping the child build the actual cognitive skill underneath remorse, perspective taking. The question, "What do you think she's feeling?" requires the child to actually look, actually consider, actually engage their developing capacity for empathy, rather than simply mouthing a word. Many children, when actually asked to look and consider rather than commanded to apologize, will arrive at something real on their own. They might say, "She's sad," or "I made her cry." And at that point, something close to genuine remorse has actually started to form, rather than being demanded into existence. From there, instead of "now say sorry," try this: "What do you think would help her feel a little better?" This question does something remarkable. It hands ownership of the repair back to the child. Some children will say, "I could say sorry." Others might suggest fixing the toy, offering a hug, or getting their sibling something they like. Whatever they propose, that's the repair, and it carries far more weight than an extracted word because it came from the child's own emerging sense of responsibility rather than from parental pressure. If the child does choose to say sorry on their own initiative at this point, it tends to come out completely differently, slower, quieter, sometimes accompanied by a hug or a guilty glance, the way genuine remorse actually looks on a child's face. That's worth acknowledging specifically. "That meant a lot to your sister. I could tell you really meant it." Now, what about the child who, even after this entire process, still refuses to say sorry or offer any kind of repair? This happens, and it doesn't mean the approach has failed. Some children need more time to process before remorse surfaces, and forcing the issue at that exact moment will only produce the same hollow performance the parent was trying to avoid in the first place. In this case, say, "Okay, you don't have to say it right now, but I do need you to help make this right in some way. What's something you could do?" If they still resist, the parent can offer a concrete, low-pressure option. "Would you be willing to help me get her an ice pack?" Or, "Can you help pick up the pieces with me?" Notice that the action doesn't require the word sorry to be spoken at all. A child who helps clean up, who fetches a tissue for a crying sibling, who sits quietly nearby afterward, is demonstrating something closer to real repair than any forced verbal apology ever produces. Over time, as this becomes the household norm, most children naturally begin adding the words themselves because they've watched repeatedly that repair matters more than ritual, and the words start to feel like a natural extension of the action rather than a hostage situation. There's a longer piece worth building into family life outside of any specific conflict. In a calm moment, say to the child, "In our family, when we hurt someone, we don't just say sorry, we try to actually make things better. Saying sorry is one way, but it's not the only way, and it doesn't count if we don't mean it." This sets an expectation that goes beyond a single magic phrase and frames repair as a value rather than a rule to comply with under pressure. Here's the long view. A child who is forced to perform an apology learns that words can be hollow and conflict can be resolved through compliance rather than understanding. A child who is guided towards noticing impact, considering feelings, and choosing a genuine repair, even haltingly, even imperfectly, is building the actual architecture of empathy. That architecture serves them in every relationship they will ever have, long after any individual parent's enforcement has stopped mattering. The goal is not a child who says sorry on command. The goal is a child who, over time, comes to understand why repair matters and chooses it because they understand, not because they were told to. Say it the next time the standoff happens. Look at her face. What do you think she's feeling right now? That question builds something a forced apology never could. If this video helped, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps more parents find this channel when they need it, and subscribe for more videos just like this one. Here's today's comment question. Do you remember being forced to apologize as a kid when you didn't actually mean it? How did that feel looking back? Drop it in the comments. These answers tend to be surprisingly honest, and they might change how you handle the next standoff in your own house.